So far, we've created a basic track and improved upon it by adding curves to the driving line and decorations to the game world. Now, we'll move forward on our mission towards motocross madness by adding triggers and events to our track. This time, we'll be using some more advanced tools, so let's start by launching the Pro Editor. To save some time, however, we can load up the track we started in the last video. Triggers and events are more advanced tools. I'll provide a basic explanation as to how they function, but I highly recommend watching the trigger and event tutorial from our editor tutorial series to learn more. Events are basically tools that perform some sort of action, and triggers are how the events are activated. You can find a number of examples of triggers and events in action in the Example Groups category in the New Objects menu. The first thing we'll add is an explosion. You can make explosions by breaking the explosive objects like dynamite boxes, or you can use an effect event to activate explosion effects. Personally, I prefer the explosion effects as you get more choices for the look of the explosion. For our track, let's place a ground explosion near the start so that we get a nice big boom right off the bat. Next, we'll place an area trigger and an effect event. In the properties for the trigger, we'll select the on hit option and choose the effect event. Now, when the trigger is activated, it'll send an impulse to the effect event. In the effect event properties, we'll choose the select event targets option and then select our explosion effect. Now, the event knows that when it gets the impulse, its job is to activate that explosion. Let's give it a test. That was fun. Next, how about we add in something else? I've created this obstacle here with a barrel pile too high for the rider to pass. The idea being that once the rider gets close enough, the plank the barrels are sitting on will break and the barrels will fall out of the rider's way. For this, we'll need a trigger, a physics event, and a break event. Again, we'll start by opening the trigger properties and pointing it towards the physics event. We'll set up the physics event to activate physics on the barrels. The impulse can be passed along between events, so now, instead of placing another trigger, we can choose the select event filter option in the physics event and point it towards the break event. Finally, we'll open the break event and select the wooden plank as our target object. Now, we're all set. Let's give it a test run. Finally, let's end this thing with a bang. This time, we'll place an explosive object on or around the finish line, and since we're using an object this time, we'll use the break event to blow it up. In Trials Evo, we can also use checkpoints as triggers, so this time, we'll use the checkpoint instead of placing a trigger. This will ensure that this explosion can't be accidentally activated before the rider finishes the track. In the checkpoint properties, choose the select event filter option and point it at the break event. Then, in the break event, make the target object our explosive. Now we're all set. Let's give the track a test drive to see the results. And there you have it, the basics of adding triggers and events. Again, I highly recommend checking out these lessons from our track editor tutorial series if you have any questions regarding the tools we used in this video. Triggers and events have many functions and uses, and the better you understand them, the more fun, creative stuff you'll be able to add to your tracks.